Roses for Mama by Janette Oke. Chapter 24. Commitment. Thane had sent word with Thomas that he would come calling on Friday night if it was convenient for Angela. She would not have dreamed of turning him down. After all her years of close friendship with Thane, Angela felt strangely nervous and excited. "Stop it," she scolded herself, lifting a trembling hand to brush her hair back into a neat knot. But she could not control her feelings. She had never been this agitated when Carter was calling. Carter! With his name came the painful memory of his curling lips and final cutting warning. "You are all set to be an old maid. No man will marry a woman who brings along 3 younger siblings." The words brought Angela's hands to a halt. She clutched at the comb she was about to place in her hair. Carter was right. No man, not even Thane, would be expected to take on a ready-made family. Angela leaned against the bureau and shut her eyes tightly, but the tears squeezed out from under the lids. "It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair," her heart cried. "Oh, God, if only Mama—" But Angela checked her thoughts. For the first time in her life, she had been about to blame her Mama for not staying with them. "Forgive me," was her next cry. "I didn't mean it. I didn't. I know Mama did not will to die. I know she wanted to be here for her family. I know that she trusts me to take her place." And with those thoughts, Angela straightened her shoulders, brushed the tears from her eyes, and finished pinning her hair. She took one more look in the mirror to be sure no traces of tears lingered, then smoothed the skirt of her blue gingham. She preferred her voile, but Thane had always been partial to the gingham. "Thane and I have always been dear friends," she told herself. "There is no reason for that to change. We can remain friends. I will tell him so." When Thane arrived, Sarah hurled herself at him, assuming he was there just to see her. He pulled her braids and tweaked her nose, and then handed her a small package of sweets. Louise stood by, grinning and blushing, and Thane paid her a nice compliment, gave Derek a playful punch on the shoulder, and turned his attention to Angela. He did not say actual words, but Angela felt she had been paid a high compliment as well. It was in his eyes as he noted her appearance and smiled his greeting. To Angela's consternation, Thomas moved to set up the checkerboard. But Derek, not Thane, took the seat opposite him. Angela breathed a sigh of relief, and indicated that the parlor was available. Thane did not need a second invitation. "I'll see you later, if you haven't been sent off to bed," he promised Sarah, as her lip began to protrude. "None of that," he said, pretending to tweak her nose again. Sarah grinned impishly, told Louise in mock seriousness. Louise nodded, and then began to grin. It was a warm evening, so Angela had not asked Thomas to lay a fire in the hearth. She waved a hand to indicate that Thane could be seated on the brocade settee, and she moved toward the rocking chair. "Sit here," said Thane, patting the seat beside him. "I have something to show you." Angela obeyed, curious. Thane reached into a jacket pocket and drew forth a small packet. "Pa got in a new shipment, and I thought of you," he explained. He lifted a tissue-wrapped object from the brown paper and held it out to Angela. She took the gift and carefully folded back the tissue. Inside were 2 of the most delicate, dainty lace hankies she had ever seen. "Oh, Thane!" she exclaimed. "They're beautiful." "You're welcome," he said, and they both laughed. "I was going to get around to a thank you," Angela chuckled. "I really was." Her nervousness left her. She settled easily onto the seat beside him, and they talked as they had done over the years. As the evening wore on, Angela forgot all about her little "we can be friends" speech. It seemed so right for the 2 of them to be there, to be sharing thoughts and dreams. She almost forgot to offer refreshments. When she went to get the tea and tarts, she was surprised to discover that the rest of the family had retired. "Why don't I just join you in the kitchen?" Thane asked. "Then you won't have to bring everything in here." Because it was Thane, Angela did not argue. Instead, she chuckled and nodded her head for him to follow. They pulled chairs up to the kitchen table and shared the food and continued to talk. When Angela told how frightened she had been when Derek winded himself playing baseball, Thane reached out and took her hand. It never occurred to her to withdraw it. Thane listened attentively, nodding his head in understanding, increasing his pressure on her fingers. "He seems fine now," he said comfortingly. "Yes, thank God," breathed Angela, and without thinking she reached over with her other hand to clasp Thane's fingers. Thane's hold on the slim hand tightened. Then he glanced at the clock. "Oh. Oh!" he exclaimed. "I'd better get out of here before your big brother throws me out." Angela followed his gaze to the clock, and was shocked that it was almost 1. She laughed and tried to pull her hands away. Thane reluctantly released them. "I'll get your hat," she told him, and walked the few steps to the wall pegs where the hat hung. "So you are throwing me out," he teased, but he accepted the hat and then stood up. "Angela," he said, taking her by the shoulders and turning her slightly so the glowing lamp filled her face with light. "I have enjoyed the evening. Tremendously." "So have I," she whispered honestly. He drew her gently toward him and brushed a kiss on her forehead. "May I come again?" he asked softly. She could not speak. She pulled back so he could see her. Then she nodded her agreement. "Thank you." He lifted a hand to brush her cheek gently, and then he turned and was gone. Angela floated up the stairs and down the hall to her bedroom. She had never felt so light, so treasured, so filled with joy. "Oh, God," she breathed as she placed her hand on the doorknob, leaning lightly against the door. "I think Mama would be happy for me." "But you didn't explain that you are just to remain friends," said an accusing inner voice that shattered Angela's peace. "Next time," she promised herself. "We'll talk about it next time." But the weeks passed, and the visits continued, and Angela could never quite remember at the right time that she had something important to discuss with Thane. "I miss Thane," pouted Sarah, and Angela's eyes opened wide in surprise. "Why, he is here 2 or 3 times a week," she responded. "But I don't get to see him, just when he first comes. Then you hurry him off and hog him all to yourself," Sarah continued, her lip trembling and her eyes accusing. "Why, I," sputtered Angela, and then admitted meekly, "I guess I do." "Well, I think we should all get to see him. He belongs to all of us," Sarah declared. Louise nodded, for once in total agreement with her younger sister. "All right," said Angela. "We'll have him over and we'll all share him. What would you like to do?" "For supper," clapped Sarah, her eyes now sparkling. "For supper," agreed Angela. "When?" "Is he coming tonight?" asked Sarah. "Yes, but it's too late to get word to him about supper." "But we can ask him tonight. Let's ask him for Friday. We'll have our supper and wash the dishes and play our memory game, and then we'll all make popcorn and play games together." Sarah seemed to have it all worked out. Angela nodded. "All right," she said. "You may extend the invitation." As soon as Thane stepped through the door, Sarah hurled herself at him, her plan pouring out in an excited torrent of words. Thane looked over the young girl's head and received a slight nod from Angela. "It sounds like a wonderful plan," he said, giving Sarah a brotherly squeeze. "I accept." Sarah squealed her glee, reached for the ribbons that Thane held out to her, and promised to do her homework. "How's the harvest coming?" Thane asked Thomas. "All done for another year," Thomas responded. "New seed produce?" "Yeah, but it needs some work. Have to add another strain, but I did get a nice bunch of seeds to work with." Thane looked over at Derek. "Hear you're still tearing up bases," he teased, and Derek glanced up and grinned. It was now acknowledged that he was the best baseball player at his school. "How do you spell sedimentary?" asked Louise from her spot at the kitchen table. "What are you ever going to do with a big word like that?" asked Thane, stopping beside her and looking down at her book. She lifted her head and screwed up her face. "I have to do a report for school." Thane spelled the word for her, and then followed Angela to the parlor. On Friday, Thane spent the evening with the whole family, and even Sarah seemed satisfied with the outcome. "See," she told Angela, "it works just fine. Why don't we do that all the time?" Because Thane and I like to talk." "I like to talk too," protested Sarah. "That you do," Angela agreed, but she could find no words to explain the situation to the young girl. Louise cut in with a toss of her head. "They're sweethearts. They don't want company." Angela opened her mouth to protest, and then closed it again. What could she say? She still hadn't had her talk with Thane, and each call was bringing them closer together. Sarah had a birthday. To please her and the rest of the family, Angela again invited Thane for supper. She did not promise her family the entire evening, however. Thane had hinted that he wanted some time alone with her. The celebration went well. Louise had baked the birthday cake, and Thane praised it liberally while Louise flushed in pleasure and embarrassment. Thane presented Sarah with her first pair of soft kid gloves. Sarah and Louise both had to try them on, just to see how they felt. Thane helped with the dishes, but Angela sensed that he was in a hurry to get the task over and escaped the kitchen. "How about a walk?" he asked Angela when they finished their work. Angela agreed. She loved to walk. It was late fall now, and the evenings were cool, so she went to get a heavy shawl. When they stepped out onto the back porch, a full moon was shining. Angela stood for a moment and looked up into the heavens to get her thoughts under control. Somewhere up there, her mama was dwelling. She had been reunited with Papa. Angela felt sure they were happy. Still, she often wondered if they could see their family struggling to make their way without the example and counsel of wise parents. Thane took her arm, and Angela allowed herself to be led across the house and toward the long country lane. "Look at all the stars," she exclaimed. Thane released her arm and let his hand reach down to unfold hers. She wrapped her fingers around his large sturdy ones and walked closely enough that her shoulder brushed against him. "Sarah's growing up," Thane observed. Angela nodded. "She's growing fast. I sometimes fear that she'll soon catch me." She laughed. "Well, you're 19. Almost ancient," teased Thane. "She has a long way to go yet." Angela laughed. They walked in silence for a few moments. Then Thane picked up the conversation. "My mama always said that a girl is old enough to know her own mind at 19. His voice still held a teasing note. "You have a very wise mama," responded Angela in the same tone. Thane stopped and turned to the lane fence. He lifted an arm to lean on the top rail, drawing Angela close beside him, still holding her hand. "Then if you know your mind," he began, his voice serious now, are you ready to promise to be my wife?" Angela was aware that his hands tightened on hers, but then her world began to spin. She caught her breath and found herself straining in the semi-darkness to study his face. He was not teasing now. "Do you mean—" she began, but could not finish. She should have known this would happen. She should have been prepared. She should have explained to Thane that she could not leave the children until her task was completed. She could not. I can't," she cried, a sob catching in her throat. She saw in the moonlight the surprised and hurt look that crossed Thane's face. But he did not release her hand. He drew her even closer. "What do you mean you can't?" "I just can't. I promised Mama that I'd care for the family." "You can still care for the family," he interrupted. "That won't change." "But I have to live with them," began Angela. "We'll both live with them." But you won't want to take on a whole family when you wed," she sobbed and leaned against him to cry. Thane took her by the shoulders and looked into her eyes. "Angela, when I asked you to marry me, I already knew that you'd never leave them. I have always known that it would mean caring for the family. I love you, Angela. I love Thomas and Derek and Louise and Sarah. I feel they are my family too. But it is you that I want to marry, you that I want to share my life, you that I love." Angela was silent while his words found their way to her mind and to her heart. I didn't know that you cared like that," she managed at last. "I've always cared like that," he assured her, gazing deeply into her eyes. "I should have known. I should have seen it," thought Angela. "It has always been there, boldly declaring itself in his eyes, his caring, his touch." As soon as Angela accepted that fact, she knew with a certainty that Thane meant every word. She looked up into his earnest eyes. "You gave me the scare of my life when you were seeing Carter," Thane went on solemnly. He drew her back into his arms. She could hear the beating of his heart as she lay her ear against his chest. "It would have been all wrong," she whispered. "I know," he answered. "All wrong. I'm so thankful to God that you realized it before it was too late. I've never prayed so hard in all my life." Angela closed her eyes tightly and breathed a prayer of her own. "I'm still waiting for my answer," he prompted, whispering into her hair. "Oh, Thane," she responded, looking up at him. I don't think it's a bit fair to you. It won't be an easy task. You have no idea just how hard. Thane's arms tightened around her. Angela, just answer me. Yes. Yes, I'd be happy to be your wife. Thane kissed her then, while a million twinkling stars clapped their hands above them. The moon dipped thoughtfully behind a cloud, allowing them a few moments of total privacy. When the silver glow of moonlight restored light to the world around them, Thane spoke. Would you like to go in? We have a lot of plans to make. Angela agreed. Her heart was singing. Her blood was racing. Her world was spinning in a flood of glorious light and color. She lifted her face to the open sky. Oh, God, she breathed. I'm so happy. Tell Mama, will you, Father? I want so much to share this moment with her.